unexpected sequels, gruesome gore-fests, and horrifying beings living in the basement. Some terrifying horror movies came out in 2022. Here are some of the best. Terrifier 2 is a surprisingly fun splatter sequel that improves on the first film in every single way. The original Terrifier is very watchable, but the sequel is simply a blast. Once again, Art the Clown, played by the ever-creepy David Howard Thornton, is up to his old tricks, which mainly involves horribly murdering people. Terrifier 2 is still rough around the edges, and at times features some admittedly poor acting, but the film has such a zest for its over-the-top splatterpunk vibe that it's easy to get swept up in it all, even as the film clocks in at well over 2 hours. The Senegalese film Saloum is loaded with style and confidence on a minimum budget. The story concerns a group of mercenaries hired to transport a drug lord. But nothing goes according to plan, and the group is forced to land their leaking plane in a remote region where something supernatural awaits. Slick as hell and featuring more life and energy than most modern releases regurgitated by Hollywood, Saloum is probably the coolest movie on this list. Smile is a surprisingly nasty studio horror picture, filled with shocking gore and a frequently nihilistic tone. It was also a huge hit with audiences, and references a plethora of popular films such as The Ring. Kevin Bacon's daughter, Sosie Bacon, plays a doctor who witnesses one of her patients die violently by suicide. She begins being haunted by visions of people grinning at her.
It's smiling at me, but not a friendly smile. It's the worst smile I've ever seen.
At first, it's unclear whether the visions are simply triggered by trauma or if she's actually witnessing a malevolent supernatural force. Viewers quickly learn that the lead is all but doomed, which makes the film all the more urgent, as time is running out and evil is getting closer with every second. The Predator series has had its ups and downs, but Prey gets back to basics. Jumping back in time to the 1700s, Prey pits one of those hunt-loving predator aliens against Naru, played by Amber Midthunder, a young Comanche who wants to prove she's just as tough a warrior as her brother. Rather than exploring even more predator mythology, Prey keeps the plot simple. The predator comes to Earth, starts killing, and then comes up against a fighter who gives it a run for its money. What elevates that simple setup is Midthunder's instantly likable performance as the lead, coupled with the interesting ways a predator would operate in the past. Something in the Dirt is a funny, strange story about two guys who are obsessed with conspiracy theories and doing research on Wikipedia and YouTube. The two guys live in the same building and start to notice strange phenomena occurring in one of their apartments. Their solution is to capture these unbelievable occurrences on film and sell the footage to someone like Netflix. Viewers are forced to consider what is real and what is fabricated, as well as what might be causing the strange goings-on in the first place. The majority of Something in the Dirt revolves around the characters talking about what sounds like nonsense, but somehow it's strangely compelling. Surgery is the new sex in Crimes of the Future, David Cronenberg's hilariously twisted return to feature filmmaking. In the future, pain is all but an afterthought. As a result, people are able to disfigure and modify their bodies without blinking. Meanwhile, a performance artist is growing new, seemingly useless organs in his body, which are perfect objects to be surgically removed as a sort of live theater. Throw in sex, murder, mayhem, children eating plastic, a guy named Earman, and you have yourself a wild and wacky extravaganza. Many critics weren't won over by Crimes of the Future, but the enjoyable film certainly showcases Cronenberg's funny side. Phil Tippett's Mad God is almost impossible to describe. The stop-motion nightmare took the legendary FX artist 30 years to complete, and the results are stunning. The film follows a character through a hellish underworld, where giants are strapped to electric chairs and unnecessary surgeries are abundant. Disgusting, revolting, hypnotic, and oddly beautiful, Mad God is artistry at its finest and most repulsive. Horror comedy is a very tricky genre, usually because filmmakers lean too heavily into the comedy side of things and forget the scares. Thankfully, Deadstream is a reminder of how fun the subgenre can be when it's done right.
I hope you all appreciate the public service I'm doing by being here.
Sean, a very annoying YouTuber, has returned after a scandal and plans on spending the night in a supposedly haunted house. However, the house turns out to really be haunted, and Sean is in deep trouble. It's a very simple setup executed to perfection as Sean encounters Evil Dead 2-like mayhem from the supernatural forces that dwell within the house and beyond. The splatterpunk mayhem of the sadness is not going to be for everyone, and instead feels tailor-made to infuriate and disgust people, at which it succeeds. The sadness may not be a work of high art, but there is a deliberate, unique style on display in the film, as a mysterious illness turns people into crazed homicidal maniacs. It's undeniable that the film is made for gorehounds and those who love to watch practical makeup effects create traumatic wounds and gushing blood. The film is also darkly funny, and it grows increasingly unhinged and disgusting as the considerable body count piles up. Bones and All, a film about fine young cannibals, may not seem like a horror movie to the uninitiated. But there's enough blood and guts here to change that opinion. Taylor Russell is a young girl who can't help wanting to eat people. She has an intense compulsion, and she's not alone. There are eaters all over the country, and Russell's character sets out on the road and soon finds Timothée Chalamet's Lee, who is just as hungry as she is. The two fall in love, moving from one location to the next and encountering other cannibals along the way. Both romantic and unapologetically gruesome, Bones and All is heartbreaking and beautiful in its own gory way.
Never, ever ate an eater.
Ty West's X is a sexy, bloody, highly enjoyable slasher. The story follows a crew of amateur filmmakers who head to a secluded farm to shoot a porno. Unfortunately for them, the old woman who lives in the farm has other ideas. Mia Goth plays both Maxine, one of the porn stars, and Pearl, the old woman who starts brutally killing the horny visitors. What's so refreshing about X is that it's just a fun, old-school horror flick, and highly rewatchable to boot. David Gordon Green's Halloween reboot trilogy could have ended with the same old Michael Myers stalking people through Haddonfield. Indeed, it seems like that's exactly what people wanted. Instead, Green decided to try something different with Halloween Ends, crafting a film where evil is contagious and spreading like a sickness. While Michael Myers is still lurking in the background, the film focuses on a new character, a lonely, shunned guy named Corey, who essentially becomes the Shape's apprentice. Laurie Strode is still in search of closure after all these years, and Green gives it to her. The film also leans into the idea that the people of Haddonfield are just as bad as the monster they hate, and they're willing to give in to mob justice because they think they're morally superior. Needless to say, Halloween Ends is a shockingly complex entry in the franchise, and perhaps the most interesting sequel since Halloween 3: Season of the Witch.
He's dead. Not dead enough.
Jordan Peele's Nope is a tribute to all the crew members who work on movies, such as the Grips, the Gophers, and the people who set things up and rarely get any credit. Daniel Kaluuya is OJ, the owner of a horse ranch that rents horses out to the movie studios. OJ becomes aware of something in the skies over his ranch, and his sister Emerald, played by Keke Palmer, gets the idea that they should try to capture it on film. However, the siblings get way more than they bargained for, because this isn't some flying saucer. This is Peele in Spielberg mode, staging a huge blockbuster-style scare. Nope is full of big laughs and big chills, and includes one of the scariest scenes of the year, involving an unlucky audience being slowly digested as they hopelessly scream for their lives. Nope may be a better movie than Barbarian, but Barbarian is probably a better horror movie than Nope. Barbarian is one of the best surprises of the year, and truly felt like it came from nowhere. A funny, scary, shout-at-the-screen horror pick, the likes of which we don't see much of these days. Writer-director Zach Kreger plays with our expectations and assumptions from the jump, dropping Tess, played by Georgina Campbell, at an Airbnb that's already been rented. The other renter is Keith, played to perfection by Bill Skarsgård, and everything inside Tess tells her that she should get the hell out of there. Instead, she accepts Keith's invitation into the house. Barbarian is one of those films where the less you know about it going in, the better. However, thanks to social media spoilers, you probably already know what's lurking at the heart of the film. As it transpires, Keith isn't a problem, but the basement of the house is. There's someone or something horrifying living down there. And just when the horror ramps up, the action cuts to what feels like an entirely different movie, instead showing us the story of an actor, played by Justin Long, whose career is ruined by a rape allegation. As for what Long's storyline has to do with the rented house, you'll simply have to wait and see. Barbarian is tense from the very beginning and never lets up, unleashing humor and horror while shocking and thrilling us every step of the way.